Why old MMOs feel better.
Many long-time MMO players fondly reminisce about the days gone when MMOs were far less optimized than they are now, when the games were more of a struggle to play. The old guard complains about today's modern MMO conveniences like tutorials, fast travel, quest markers, minimaps, group finders, and the lack of need to communicate. Many say MMOs have lost the social soul they had so long ago and simply aren't as memorable. However, many of the modern advancements people blame were added as a result of players directly asking for them. Is it?
Yeah, that's actually true what he said about players asking for them. I've seen this with Elder Scrolls Online, where people on the forum asked for some sometimes good but sometimes really dumb things, and they constantly wanted to have certain things in the game nerfed, and they were like, the Dragonar, he's too OP, and the Sorcerer, he can do this and that, nerf this. And what happened? Every single patch, all the classes got nerfed. Certain game mechanics were completely removed. Certain things were made easier to a level that it got boring, including some in the past difficult content. So that's the thing about like the forum. Not everyone that has an opinion has the right opinion. Let's just say it like that. Like, yeah.
Is it possible to design a game to be worse and yet in doing so actually make the player's long-term experience of it better? Can giving the player a less optimized, less immediately fun experience actually result in them remembering the game more fondly? And indeed even recommending it to players precisely because of the fact it is less optimized? The answer is both yes and no. It's a paradox of adversity within game design, and it's one of the main reasons modern MMOs feel the way they do. It's also what Blizzard was trying to get at when they said, you think you do, but you don't. So let's discuss the actual psychology behind it. As usual, a massive thank you to all the supporters on Patreon and Twitch who keep the channel going. More information.
How did he get so many on Patreon? That is insane. Those are many. And yeah, I quickly wanted to say is that, what do I remember more? My retail characters that I level up, or do I remember more my WoW Classic characters that I level up? To be honest, I think I remember more the WoW Classic ones. And the reason why is because every single quest takes way longer, so it's constantly being refreshed in my memory because I keep seeing it for a long time, right? So I have it easier to remember this than I have on retail where everything is just so quick. Like, there's still a couple of quests or parts on some characters that I remember on retail, but these days I feel like, yeah, Classic is more stuck in my head and my memory, but because it takes longer and I'm more, let's say, grinding, so I spend way more time to level up the character. So maybe that's also why. And yeah, by the way, guys, if you're new to this channel, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more content. And you guys also agree with me here that if you take longer with something, that you remember this more than if you do something in just a matter of a few minutes, right? Because I remember I was like questing in just the starting zone of, was it like Orcish? Yeah, it was the Orc starting zone on the hot side in WoW TBC Classic. And I spent like almost like a whole day in like this early area, right? Like, it was crazy. And that's probably why I remember it so well.
On how you can support at the end. For now, let's begin. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Josh Strife Hayes. I've been making videos about MMORPG design for years, and one thing that I hear repeatedly from both old players who played the game back in the day and new players who are just discovering them is that older MMOs were better. Now, better is a very subjective word. It's hard to define, it's different for everyone. Better? But with so many old games still online, like the original EverQuest, or classic versions of modern games being released, like World of Warcraft Classic or old school RuneScape, there must be some element of design, some choice, beyond just nostalgia, some reason people keep going back to older designed games. Over the years, I've tried to make videos explaining MMO design, breaking down design elements, comparing choices. I've covered the idea of the meta, the chosen one narrative trope, fast travel, endgame, abundance of MMOs themselves, microtransactions, graphics, level scaling.
And copy-paste MMOs.
I think I've managed to distill it down to the simplest, most base reason. I'm going to call it the paradox of adversity within game design. It's not the catchiest title, I know, but it explains why making something better for the player in the short term can sometimes remove its ability to have a long-term impact. It's all to do
Yeah.
with the human experience of overcoming adversity. Consider the following. If something, say a task or a challenge, is immediately easy, it will have a high number of people attempt it and complete it. Because
Okay, I can give you guys a very, very good example. Okay, let's say you buy a chair in a store, and let's say you actually buy, like, not a chair in a store, but you buy parts and you build your own chair. Which chair is more important to you? The one that you bought or the one that you crafted, I mean, made yourself from pieces? It's the one that you spend more time in. Like, yeah, like I know some people that are really into, I want to make everything myself. Like, I even like know one guy, he wanted to build a house himself, and he actually did so. And this person is like crazy about his house. He's like, he wants to always adjust something. Let's change the garage. Let's paint the house in a different color. And I feel like if you make something yourself with like a lot of effort and struggle, it's way more near to your heart and to your memory than something you just quickly buy and have, right? Like I said, this example, if you make a chair yourself and you sit on it, you feel a way, you give a way different feeling than if you go to the shop and you buy a chair and you sit on it. Maybe a chair is a stupid example, right? But like painting, this is the best example actually. A painting. If you draw a painting and the painting looks really, really nice and you did a very good job and you hang it on your wall, and you go to a store and you buy a painting that looks nice, which painting is more memorable and more important to you? It's gonna be the one that you draw and had success on, right? So yeah, that's the same I think with games. That's why pay to win games, in my opinion, also can't live for a long time, because if you pay a lot of money to get somewhere in a game, it doesn't feel like a true reward to you, and it's not memorable. But if you grind for like months, maybe years, and then you succeed, this is very memorable.
it's accessible to a greater number of people, and because a great number of people tend to enjoy easier things, the task will see a relatively high retention rate. You could consider things like sitting on the sofa binge watching a TV show, or ordering a takeaway, getting dressed in whatever was lying on the floor, calling off a planned meeting because it's raining and you don't want to go. It's low effort, but immediate reward. On the opposite end of the spectrum are very hard tasks with very high rates of immediate failure, or a great deal of input effort required. Fewer people will even attempt it, let alone succeed. And because people don't enjoy failure, many will quit if the first few attempts don't succeed. This could be leaving the sofa to go to a gym, applying for a much harder job than you've currently got, cooking a full 3-course meal from scratch, dressing up in smart or complex clothes, or attending a meeting if the circumstances are against you and you don't want to go. It could be learning a language or training for a difficult sports event such as a triathlon. It's very high effort with a very delayed reward. The paradox is the immediate reward for the low effort input is never as high or as satisfying as the delayed reward for the high input process. The intensity of the reward and the long-term value of it is directly related to the complexity and difficulty to achieve the process.
True.
Put simply, if something is easy to do, you'll feel good in the process but not care about the reward in the long term. You likely won't even create
just like
a
the painting
memory
I
of
said
either
earlier.
the process or the reward because it's nothing special. But if something is difficult to do, you'll likely dislike the process of doing it,
Yeah.
then the long-term reward of having done it will have more intrinsic value to you, and the memory you create will be much more...
You know what? I just had this funny thought. That's the same with me working out. So when I do like sports, I train like my arms, my chest, or abs in general. And at first, like I remember, like this was like last year when I was like doing some stronger exercise, and at the first week during exercising and working on my body, I actually hated working out so much in the first week. Then I actually saw the results after more than a week, and I saw, oh, there's like more definition now. And then, like, it was funny. The second week, I actually enjoyed working out. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to do more sit-ups, push-ups, and to lift some weights. Yay, let's go. But the first week, I hated it. But then I checked myself on, like, day 8 or so at the mirror, and I saw a few changes. And those were, like, minor changes, but they motivated me for the second week. So I think it's the same with working out, right? Like, you hate it at first. You spend a lot of hours, like, you know, 1+ week, maybe several weeks, and then if you start to see results, like, oh, wow, oh yeah, I want to keep going, something like that. Yeah, it's like that. That's how our human brain functions, I guess.
Intense. This is human nature. We want the easy and immediate, but we place much more long-term value on the completion of difficulty. Nobody wants to struggle, but everyone wants the feeling and satisfaction earned from struggling and succeeding. We don't enjoy the process of overcoming adversity, but we do grow from it. Indeed, the moments of unplanned struggle often become some of our fondest memories. It's very important to understand that the word struggle in this context is not life-changing trauma. It's not extremely negative experiences that you wish you could remove. It means less than optimal, unexpected. It means more difficult than you originally anticipated. It's not extremely damaging, it's challenging within the context of the game.
Yeah.
If you go camping with your friends and everything is absolutely fine, you'll likely have an okay trip. But if on the second night it begins to absolutely pour with rain and you discover there's a rip in the tent, you will likely hate it in the moment, but look back on it fondly, laughing with the group as you all reminisce the struggle you overcame. It's often the moments of struggle that we look back on and smile about.
This happened to me in WoW Classic almost. I was questing solo, and I was so used to leveling and questing in WoW Retail new characters, and I died by myself in simple quests against just 2-3 mobs. Yeah, no, it's embarrassing, but that's how it is in WoW TBC Classic. If you're like low level, sometimes pulling 2-3 mobs leads to your death, unlike Retail. And I was so frustrated. There were like moments I wanted to rage quit. I'm like, I'm not gonna level anymore. I've made it to level 7, but shit, I don't think I can get to even level 10. I keep dying to regular mobs. And you know what? I pushed through, and when I was like level 12 or 13, stuff got a bit easy. And I enjoyed it again. No, seriously, but I actually asked some people, like, hey, you also doing this quest? And then I met like a very nice person, and we were like questing for like a few levels. So yeah, and that's the social aspect. If games are more challenging, like MMOs, you will want to find people, communicate, and have memories that you share with other people. But modern MMOs, a lot of them can be soloed for a lot of content, except for like dungeons. But to actually need people for like quests and stuff, that was an interesting experience for me during the WoW Classic period when it was like new.
Defeated the enemy, and we see value in that. If you ask older MMO players some of their best memories, they'll often tell you about all the adversity they overcame, standing selling items in the EverQuest tunnel or the Falador Bank, completing quests without guides, phoning friends in real life to organize a raid. There exists in design a Goldilocks zone of player difficulty, where something is not too easy and not too hard, it's just right. You're not going to frustrate the player and prevent them from finishing the game, but when they do finish the game, they're going to feel an immense satisfaction that they have overcome a perfectly balanced challenge.
It's like climbing a mountain.
So how does this all relate back to MMORPGs?
It's also a good example. It's like climbing a mountain. You hate the climb, but once you've reached the top of the mountain, you feel great because you overcame the obstacles. Like the person that climbed Mount Everest, for example, I'm pretty sure the person didn't most likely enjoy the climb itself. But once Mount Everest was climbed, this person felt really, really great. I'm pretty sure.
Well, remember when Blizzard told you think you do, but you don't?
And by the way, you don't want to do that either. You think you do, but you don't. Remember when you had to like spam cities and say, need a tank, need a tank, need a tank during the Burning Crusade days? You don't remember that because now you just push a button that says go to the dungeon. You don't want to do that.
Here's what they actually meant. It's two elements of human psychology combining. The abundance of choice, meaning we don't stick at one thing when it gets challenging and can easily switch, and the value we gain from overcoming a challenge. Many years ago, there weren't as many MMOs, so you have a relatively captured audience. If you didn't like one game, you could go to another, but you'd very quickly cycle through all possible games. The player base didn't have great variety, and a lot of these MMOs were difficult. The players would face adversity in all games, such as no group finders, meaning you had to talk to people, and creating a group could take a while. No quest markers on the minimap, or minimaps themselves, or even in your journal, so you had to write down down NPCs' names and locations. No market boards or global trading systems, so it was player-to-player trade only. No tutorial, meaning you were placed directly into the world and you relied on the community to help you, and many games came on physical CDs and took hours to install, with the process often going wrong. This isn't the game itself, but it's still part of an adversity experience. Adversity means a difficult or unpleasant situation, and overcoming it is a good feeling. Now, the adversity in a game doesn't just need to be the boss design or the gameplay. It can be the meta elements, such as having to play a game without a guide, being unable to switch servers and play with your friends, corpse runs, experience debt, almost cryptic levels of description for both quest guides and item descriptions. Older games had a lot of adversity within them. And as we know, while people like the sense of accomplishment which comes with overcoming adversity, they don't always like adversity in the moment. People quit.
And there's also, like, there are two types of players. You have, like, those hardcore players that want to really get into a game and play as much as they can and as many hours, and the more grind, the better, right? But then you also have, like, those casual people, like those casual players that just want to play, like, 2-3 hours a day or so at most, right? So I feel like gaming these days, there's still, like, hardcore gamers, don't get me wrong, but there are way more also casual players these days, right? Because everyone is getting way more busier, and a lot of people that started playing MMOs, like World of Warcraft is a good example, because I was in my teenage years when the game was, like, released, right? So what happened is a lot of people, they got older, and when they got older, they got, like, kids, they got, like, full-time jobs and stuff. So now the time is also less. So I feel like a lot of MMOs, they grew with the generation that were, like, teenagers and very young adults that were, like, still in college or end of high school, right? And then, like, the generation got older and older. The developers also aged with them, and they saw that the people are having less time. So I think there was, like, some sort of impact also from the generation that back in the day started MMOs, right? Because as they aged, like, everyone realized, oh, they have less time now. So they made stuff, like, simpler. But that's just one of the factors. The other factor is, like we heard earlier, the forums. Like, some people on the forums, they ask for the weirdest stuff. Like, hey, can you increase the XP gain from level this zone and that zone? And then, like, they change stuff with the patch, for example. And then, like, suddenly gameplay is so quick. Like, you were playing, after just a few days, max level. Yeah.
Adversity, they don't always like adversity in the moment. People quit difficult things while they're still in the difficult bit. With older MMOs, this wasn't a major problem for player retention because the players simply didn't have many other places to go. The end result was a hemmed-in player base with a sparse selection of MMOs, all of which had heavy amounts of adversity, and your choice was overcome it or stop playing. And if you stopped playing, then you simply stopped caring. And if you did overcome it, you felt intense personal pride. But as more MMOs were made and player choice increased, the designers saw both opportunities and issues. If they made the player face too much adversity, the players wouldn't push on because they had no other choice, they would leave because now they did have choice. And this put designers into a strange position. They needed to make the systems the players would experience immediately very easy to prevent the players leaving, but in doing so, they were reducing the potential long-term connection the player would have to that system because no one remembers the easy accomplishments. Take the group finder. Without it, players are forced to talk and communicate and connect. Bonds will form, friendships, rivalries. You have to time your gameplay sessions to your...
Yeah, there are a lot of introverts these days, right? Like, some people, they hate to talk to others, right? Like, what about those introverts? If they have to talk to people, I guess some people can't overcome this obstacle. Like, hey, usually I don't talk to anyone. I have no friends, so you really expect me in a game to whisper people to ask for making a group, like, hey, want to do this dungeon together? So yeah, like, the introverts, it was like day. Like, the day that Dungeon Finder was added, like, introverts were, like, freaking celebrating it.
Or guild. The act of forming the group becomes a satisfying ritual itself, and when the group is formed, it will likely stick together because the process of forming another is difficult. The process of forming the
maybe
group
start a guild
is the adversity, and the feeling of having formed one is now substantial. But then the group finder comes in to remove the adversity of forming the group, and in doing so also removes the feeling of reward of performing it. It's positive for players with very little time, but negative for players who value the process of making the group. The lack of quest markers on your minimap, or indeed the lack of a detailed map at all, or the lack of fast travel, means you now faced adversity of talking to every NPC, finding a quest, memorizing the world, learning the lay of the land, or becoming friends with a class who could teleport you around. The act of exploring and progressing was the adversity.
Like
that was the challenge. It wasn't easy, but for those who could do it, it was fulfilling. Then the minimaps, teleport spells, fast travel, and icons and quest helpers and auto run came along because players were leaving the game before even finding the quests due to the difficulty of the process, and it had to be made easier to increase player retention, or the players would leave for a game which was doing it. Again, in doing so, you are removing the adversity of learning the land at the expense of the player's long-term connection to the land. Most players simply don't have a very long attention span, or a great deal of patience to deal with failure or time-consuming systems. So game designers needed to remove any and all roadblocks to failure, and this became a double-edged sword because they were now taking the process of adversity and resulting satisfaction and replacing it with a mundane, easy process and no emotional reward. This paradox of adversity can be applied to lots of MMORPG design elements. There used to be fewer MMOs, so players had less choice, meaning you could make your game more difficult. You could add in more adversity, whether that's the difficulty of the enemies, the quests, or even understanding the systems the game is made up of. Players would have to conquer them, and so be given the reward for conquering them. Ironically now, if something is too difficult, players will leave and go to another MMO because there is so much choice.
I think the best thing to do with a game these days is to find like something in between easy and difficult. Like you need to find the middle. Like you need to have some sort of balance. Because right now I feel like some MMOs are way too easy. I feel like WoW retail should be a tiny bit more difficult. Like I would actually love to have more struggles while leveling a new character, for example. Like I can put 3-4 mobs and there's no issue. I feel like it should be a bit challenging if you put multiple mobs while leveling, for example. Or if you're doing, like, let's say certain keys. I feel like some M+ keys in WoW are way too easy, like the lower ones, right? That's why I'm trying to go, like, higher. And I don't know, I feel like the low should be a bit more difficult. And maybe the super difficult should be a bit more easy. You get what I mean, right? Like, it needs to meet in the middle. Because that would be optimized then for, like, because both types of players can play it. The casual ones, and if the casual ones, they are seeking a bit of a challenge, it's there, right? Because it's like medium difficulty. And the really hardcore players, they still have at least a little bit of sweating. Like just a little bit. Not as much anymore as back in the day, but still. So yeah, I think it's important to find the middle.
It is incredibly ironic that the design which sets up satisfaction, adversity, is also the design which drives players away.
Sadly,
in short,
yes.
If you fill your MMO with player adversity, systems which the player must overcome, it will feel incredibly satisfying when a player advances through it, but it is also far more likely the average player will quit before reaching that satisfaction, because the process is difficult. And if you fill your game with easy systems which remove adversity, it is now much more likely that players will stick around and finish your game, but also they will feel very little connection to it because they never had to overcome adversity to get there.
Just a couple of
months experience means less immediate fun, but a stronger long-term appreciation of it. An easy experience means more immediate fun, but a weaker long-term appreciation of it. You only need to look at the modern-day video game difficulty mythos to see how we as players value overcoming adversity. The Pandaren who leveled to maximum without leaving the starting zone. Swampletics taking on the Theatre of Blood while locked entirely inside...
Wait, hold up. Wait, what? A Pandaren reaches level 90 without leaving starting zone. It was in 2014. Huh? How was that? How is that even possible? Can you? That means this person kept killing mobs over and over again, or what? Like, how was this person leveling to 90? Huh? Interesting.
Zone. Swampletics taking on the Theatre of Blood while locked entirely inside Mauritania. Let me solo her, killing Melania wearing only a pot on his head. The Happy Hop performing no-hit runs of the Soulsborne games, sometimes consecutively. Rendy achieving the level 3 fire cape in old school RuneScape. Finishing the Mario games without collecting any coins. We value and respect those who overcome adversity in games, and if that player is us, we end up valuing and respecting ourselves. So the reason many players have fond memories of older MMOs and will tell new players that older games are better is because they contained a lot more adversity, and playing them...
Oh, I just remember I've done this before in Skyrim actually. I've done a very difficult approach to try to beat the game. I was using like these kind of illusion spells and stuff, and I wanted to play as a pacifist, like someone that doesn't even fight against anything. I wanted just to use spells like mind control stuff. And I was like doing a couple of levels on that. It was actually quite fun because I was not killing stuff. I was literally just running through using spells that would like calm enemies or make them actually fight against each other instead. Yo, this was funny.
Demanded you overcome it, giving you as a player that deep sense of satisfaction which comes with doing that. They may not be fun in the moment, but they are infinitely more satisfying to look back on. Modern day MMORPGs have removed as much adversity as they can because that improves the early to mid-game experience. The irony, of course, is you will retain more players, but you won't be generating those very human, very intense, very memorable experiences that come with overcoming an adverse system. It's why killing a boss after 100 attempts feels better than killing the boss after 1 attempt. You have achieved something difficult.
Yeah.
The irony, of course, is that most players won't stick around for 100 attempts. They will declare it too difficult and move on to a different game. Many players ask for easy routes to be added because they focus on the gameplay experience of right now more than the long-term experience and satisfaction gained by conquering a challenge. The skill in games design is to find that Goldilocks zone, where a game is challenging and rewarding while not being frustrating to the point of making a player quit. Older MMOs had much less competition. Players couldn't just leave for another game at a moment's notice, and even if they did, it would be just as difficult. So that Goldilocks zone was much broader for older MMOs. When Blizzard said, "You think you do, but you don't," what they meant was they believed a modern-day MMO player base would quit classic WoW due to the adversity in the game's design, the lack of group finder,
they got spoiled pretty much
on the minimap before they were able to reach the satisfying level of WoW Classic and value the experience that overcoming the adversity gave them. But
oh, were they wrong? They were so wrong about that, because when WoW Classic launched, a lot of people actually stick to it, not just for like a month or two, but like longer, right? And TBC was also pretty hyped. I think the WoW Classic community is actually also quite large. Maybe not as big as retail, but it's still pretty big. So yeah, like people do still enjoy the old school kind of feeling when it's like more challenging, more adversity, right?
Blizzard design seems to be remove all adversity at the expense of all long-term satisfaction. So the next time you hear an older MMO player saying they want old-style MMOs back, what they likely mean is, while they may not remember the less fun process of playing the game, they miss the end feeling of overcoming adversity that the game gave them. But what do you think? Should modern MMOs be designed with fewer features so players have to push through adversity to gain the satisfaction of overcoming it, or should the adversity be removed to increase early game player retention at the cost of long-term satisfaction? Or should self-imposed limitations, such as RuneScape's Iron Man mode, be adopted by the game industry and made available for self-imposed adversity? What's the best design choice here?
That's actually good.
Let me know in the comments below. Thank you again for watching. Another massive thank you to the supporters on Patreon and Twitch who keep the channel alive. You can support from only £1 a month. Check the video description for links to the Patreon, Twitch, Twitter and Discord. And as always, have a great day.
Wow, that was interesting. But yeah, how I feel about is like these days, because we have like a lot of casual players as well, like you can't add too much adversity. If you make the game too grindy, too hard, it would be tough to keep everyone in the game, right? And the numbers high. The problem is because there are also like so many other MMOs now, so people have a lot to pick, right? And if you're like a super casual gamer, then you're probably going for a more easier MMO. So my opinion is to add different modes. I think that's very important, to have like the easy approach and to have like something like I was saying like nightmare mode or something like adversity that you can give yourself. I think this would really fix a lot. And if there are maybe some zones where you can like go to, and there are like some really good rewards and stuff, but it's like more challenging. But we have this these days, right? Also because like in WoW Retail, for example, like I said, a +2, +4 key is a joke. But if you start doing like +20s, like you will see, oh, this is really difficult. So I think the best approach is to find something that's like in between difficult and easy. Like it needs to be in the middle, so you're satisfying both types of players, the hardcore players because they're not too bored, and you're also still attracting the casual players that are not so much into the game by hours, so they're not the super pros, but they still want to be able to beat the game. So yeah, kind of like, I don't know, like now we do have some stuff, like we also have this in Final Fantasy 14 where you can go to freaking ultimates and stuff. You have hierarchies in WoW, but one thing that I'm missing is that the questing and the leveling experience is a bit challenging. I feel like in WoW, for example, in retail, they need to make the leveling experience a tiny bit more difficult, just by like 20-30% increase at least. I think that would already fix a lot, in my opinion. It wouldn't be as difficult as in classic, and you could probably still solo it, but sometimes you would drop at least low health, right, while questing. I think that would make it more exciting. Or if there are certain zones where maybe you can't fly until you have reached a super high level or something. But yeah, that's just my opinion. So what do you guys think? How do you guys feel about like the old MMO generation versus the new MMO generation? And which MMOs do you like more? The old ones or the new ones? And what do you miss about the old ones? Let me know in the comment section. And if you guys haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing. If you guys enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give this one a thumbs up. I wish everyone a wonderful day. I will see you guys next time.